So lesson four, identifying social engineering and malware. One of my favorite subjects. Social engineering is all around us, happening all the time. So let's move forward. So social engineering is pretty much the manipulation of a human, being able to lie. That's just basically it. Is lying, right? It's telling you whatever you want to hear in order for me to get whatever I want to get. So hacking of the human, if you want to go that route, that's fine. But it's just pretty much be able to get the information out of you versus me actually going and hacking into a firewall. Why should I do that when I have researched you and I know that your favorite school is USC? So guess what? I'm gonna say that I went to USC and I played on the football team, and we're gonna strike up a nice conversation with you, and that's me starting my process of social engineering. Now that was a good example of just kind of being, familiar with someone, being able to be a likable person, and then I could take that conversation into, hey, what do you do? Oh yeah, well, I work in this sector too, and you know what? We're able to help out in any way possible to different types of businesses, and formulate this wild, drawn out story of how I can make your life better. Which all of this is could be a lie, and then I'm going to you to see how far you will go. Maybe you will show me the interface to the server. Maybe you will give me a credential to log in because you have taken so much liking to me that you're just trying to make your day better at work, right? And this is how social engineering comes off as such a strong factor because people in general just want to help. Um, we do not want to be mean to each other. It's not necessarily a militant type of way where we want to have militant principles. Human nature is not built out that way. So having a familiarity or a liking to someone is a big part of social engineering. Um, you could also come at someone with an authoritative or an intimidation factor. Um, let's give another example of you're working. Let's say you're working at the front desk, and I come in with a um, a Best Buy Geek Squad shirt on, right? And I'm mad. I'm just you don't know me from nobody, right? And I just walk through the door and I'm mad and I'm pissed off and I'm just saying, hey, I told them to make sure that the server was on this channel, this port. I'm speaking all this jargon and I'm just saying, hey, I need to get to the server room ASAP. I don't have time to wait. I got several other clients out here waiting. And you as a front desk helper, you're not only thing you want is just a smooth, calm personality. You're not expecting a brash, straightforward person. So you may take me to the actual closet, just to kind of, because that tension is there, and will try their best to avoid that. But that's social engineering at its best too. So we need to be aware of that type of stuff, awareness training, make sure that our users are aware that these are the type of attacks that are not so brainy, right? They don't need to brute force your password when you'll just take me to the server. So the example that I just gave that, an example of me impersonating a Geek Squad member. But I can also dress up in a suit and act like I'm a CFO for your competitor, in whatever industry. And let's say if it's a school system and I'm dressing up as the principal to the across the street school, or the cross town rival school. I'm the principal of there, and then I'm going over to say, hey, you guys stole da 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 da, and I'm impersonating power to get what I want. And what I want is something totally different. I mean, it's kind of hard to tell what people actually want just by a conversation. So again, just kind of having the wherewithal of what's going on and understanding that our users are the weakest link because they already have access to our network. We have already trusted them. But if they are weak-minded when it comes to different types of social engineering attacks, then it's an easy walk-in for, let's say, that pen tester to just get onto the network and do what they need to do. So dumpster diving and tailgating. I'm gonna get back to dumpster diving in a second because I think it's funny. But tailgating is again, people, we don't want to be rude, or we don't want any kind of issues off the bat, or just in first sight. You're not trying to really be rude to anybody, right? I grew up in the South where holding the door for someone is polite, is what you have been taught to do. But let's say if you're in a place of business and we're going out there and someone's carrying boxes in, they're impersonating let's say a UPS driver, and they're impersonating carrying a bunch of boxes. Your natural instinct is to hold the door for them, but that's tailgating in, right? That's having them not check in with the front desk or show a badge or sign a piece of paper saying that, hey, we are allowing you onto the premises. It's just it skips that whole process because I want to be nice. I don't want no issues with this guy. He's just trying to have a hard day's worth of work. I'm not gonna interrupt him by saying, hey, go sign in, and he got a bunch of boxes. But if he doesn't work for them, then it's for naught, right? And then now you could be the issue on why the company was hacked because we let someone in by tailgating. Now, dumpster diving, I think it's funny because the great lengths that people will go through just to get information off a company. If you're not properly shredding or burning or destroying the data that's physical on paper, or let's say CDs or something like that, if you're still using CDs, and you just throw them out into the dumpster, it's too easy for someone to just jump into the dumpster, pull the bag out, and just go home. And now all the information that they need is there. If in every baking system that I've seen, they're actually shredding the paper. But if you don't have a cross shredder, you just have a shredder that shreds up and down, then how easy or if I'm really dedicated, I'll jump into the dumpster, get the bags, take them home. I ain't got nothing else to do. I'm a hacker. I'm gonna just piece together the papers and get the information that I need. But if we have a cross shred, or we have one that, in some cases I've seen where people burn those important papers, then, we eliminate that type of attack. So I think we all are aware of fraud and how it works, and having invoices scams as far as, someone sending you an email with the invoice saying, um, you've ordered such and such. Make sure you click this link to make sure that your packages is received and correct. And they go into this whole thing of maybe stealing your credentials if they send you to a website that has you to log in. But I wanted to really highlight the shoulder surfing as well as the lunchtime attack. These two attacks are very easy to do, as well as they're common in the everyday workforce from what I've seen. Shoulder surfing is just exactly what it is. You're looking over someone's shoulder onto their screen to see what type of information is being inputted. So how do we eliminate that? Is we'll have these privacy screens that we can place onto our monitors. If you have a laptop, that the monitor screen can have a screen protector on it. It looks like a screen protector, but it's actually a privacy screen kind of film that goes over the screen. And then now if you're not directly in front of the PC, then it shows as if it's a blank screen. So I've seen only maybe one place that has that in place to guard against shoulder surfing. And then lunchtime attacks is when Alice is done typing for the front part of the workday, and it's 12 o'clock, and now she goes to lunch, but she forgets to log out or lock her computer in order to, in order to go to lunch. She just leaves it open, and then someone can easily sit down and gather around, go around and traverse around the network with her credentials, looking into different things, especially if she works in an important department, let's say in finance. Then she probably can have a lot of access to data that no one else should be able to see. Now you could say, Lee, well, if they're not in the department, then that should be fine. But if I impose, like on the previous scenarios, if I'm impersonating a Geek Squad member and I'm saying I'm looking for Alice, and she's gone for that time being, they say, hey, we could take you to her desk. She's gone for the day, or she's gone for an hour and a half for lunch. Oh, well, yeah, it's not going to take me long. It'll take me 15 minutes to do what I got to do. If I'm impersonating someone else, I don't even have to log in. She doesn't have to see me log in. I can attack her computer that way. So phishing, whaling, and vishing. We all know what phishing is. If we're not familiar, then we're talking about fake emails that will guide you to clicking on links or putting in information that is not from the sender that you thought it was. And if you want to see good examples of them, you don't really have to wait until it shows up in your inbox. Just go take a look at your spam box anytime, and you'll just see, unwanted mail. Back in the day, we would think of this as junk mail, right? But today we have phishing. Phishing can be very tailored to mimic any type of company that you may be in dealings with. A good fish that I seen lately was a fish that came in that had a Amazon logo on it, and it had the same font and color that Amazon uses for their little smile. So it's that little orange color that they have. Very authentic. Even came down to the small fine print at the bottom of the email was on point. It almost had me, but once I looked at the who is it from, that email there, I could tell that it was a fish. Now, spear phishing is when when an attacker targets in on one particular person or a particular group. Let's say if I'm going after Alice and she's in the marketing department of U.S. Bank, I'm targeting her in particular. So I'm spear. That how if you ever seen a spear fish, people do spear fishing. It has a arrow, and it's for a particular fish, right? Marlin at that. But anyway, whaling. So you have whaling, and that's for your more senior management positions. So it's fish campaigns or phishing emails for your CEOs, your CFOs, your department heads, members of the board, people who are in these management type of positions. When they get tailored emails to kind of trick them into clicking on links, that's called whaling. Phishing is pretty much running a social scam over the phone, right? So that's someone cold calling. Right now we are in a time where robot calling is at an all-time high. And then finally we have smishing, and that's where we see kind of like these unwanted IM messages, whether it's an Android or iPhone, wherever you get a text message and it's not wanted, right? It tells you, hey, click on this link to receive a new gift card from Amazon. And they're trying to mislead you into thinking to click on the link, put in the information, and then whatever attack comes from that is the results of it. So I already kind of got on the spam in the previous slide. It's unwanted email, unsolicited email. People are probably, they have you on an email list where whoever sold them the list, where they actually harvest a whole bunch of emails, and now maybe they're trying to promote their new late night sports bar, and they have you on an email list. And a lot of our email providers will have that type of emails go off into your spam. Now, I said to go and look in your spam email inbox to look at good examples of fish, because a lot of times you will see a lot of phishing campaigns in your spam box. Um, Moving on to hoax, in the latter day of the internet, we started to see a lot of hoax go on with the uprising of Facebook, a lot of social media, such as Twitter, Instagram. They started to, once they really started to catch hold and move up into the scale, you started to see a lot of people wanting more traffic to go through their channel. So you might see a hoax go on, such as someone saying that Bill Cosby passed, or Eddie Murphy has passed, and it was soon caught on that, hey, these people are not dead. This is what we call a hoax, a fake story to get you to actually go ahead and click on the item and see if we can drive more traffic to wherever we wanted to go. Now, in the case of an attacker, if I have this catching link here with this title, what they call kind of clickbaiting, if I can clickbait you into this hoax that I have up, then I could probably maybe have you download some things onto your PC without you knowing it. So having these passive techniques, an attacker can take traffic that's, you know, redirected from their normal course of browsing and direct them to malicious sites in order to collect whatever data that they may want from the traffic. So in the security world, we call this farming. That's redirecting domain names, sites to malicious actor sites. Typo squatting is also a different type of redirection, but what it does is that it takes the mistakes that a person may make and then have them to redirect into a malicious site. A good example will be if I'm an attacker and I make a website that's named google.com, but I spell it with 3 O's instead of 2 O's, then whenever someone makes a mistake and puts in 3 O's, maybe they're sleepy or whatever, and then they're redirected to my website instead of a normal Google site. So that's a poor or a very basic example of typo squatting, but it works. A watering hole is similar type, where we're kind of we're setting up places to where people can gather and want to go and get information, making it real attractive to people who want to click on different sites. A good example is trying to have a host of something that's really eye-catching, right? Really intriguing, and then we send them to a third-party site that's there for malicious reasons. Okay, let's switch gears now and go into the indicators of malware-based attacks. So malware classification. It's important to understand that you're gonna see on the test viruses and worms. And what to really remember about it is that worms can spread from PC to PC, device to device. It doesn't need to actually be carried from one person to another, right? Such as a virus or a Trojan, where I have to send you an executable to actually execute the payload, and then it spreads like that. A worm is pretty much uncontrollable and can go out there and spread on its own. Now, a Trojan is where it's concealed to be one thing, but then it turns out to be malicious, right? Back in the day, we used to see this with toolbars. So back in the day, web browsers didn't come with toolbars on there, so we couldn't really have our little favorites hanging up there and at the top. You had to download it. And I remember downloading something from Ask Jeeves, and it was I want to say it was a Google toolbar. But anyway, It was a toolbar that once you ran the executable on something, it was a Trojan, and you know the antivirus at that time detected it and it cleaned it. But that was a good example of a Trojan. I want something for this purpose, but then it ended up being something totally different, right? Just like the real Trojan horse was meant to be a gift, but in the end, it ended up, changing how that war went. So we also have things like spyware, adware, and keyloggers. Now, adware is where you have advertisers come onto your PC and they constantly have pop-ups almost. That's kind of annoying, if anything. So the latest ones that I've seen, it kind of comes up in the lower right-hand corner, and it tells you to get a new coupon for Dawn dish detergent, and that's a advertising type of malware, right? Um, Spyware is a malware that's actually looking at your activity, um, and it may even redirect you when it comes to your browsing. Keyloggers also have that spying ability where it's recording your keystrokes as you're typing when you're typing usernames, passwords, and websites. We also have backdoor malware. That's where uh, you can have a front-facing application where what the users see, but in the back end of it, administrators can go in and actually make changes to it to where the user doesn't see it. And then once the maintenance is over, then the changes will be shown on the front side. And a lot of times, if malware it has affected an application such in that manner that it can make the back door open to access of making changes or taking out. Uh, so rootkits are viruses that live on the root of the machine. So when we're talking about a PC booting up, you will see that kind of like a black screen and maybe some white writing that's coming across the screen. That is where we're talking where that virus will live at. And it's important to have your firmware updated as much as possible whenever it does change. Make sure that it's up to date, because we can develop rootkits that sit there and we won't even know, because it's only staying on that screen for maybe 2 to 3 seconds at a time, and then we go into our operating system. But if a virus is sitting there on the root of the machine, then it has admin privileges throughout the machine, and we won't even know that it's there unless we update our firmware on an annual basis. So ransomware is a type of malware that gets onto your computer and locks the files up from access. And in order to get your assets to those files back, you need to pay a ransom, some type of money fee, in order to get those files back. Now, what they do is they basically use an encryption on your files, and they just keep the other side of the key. And we'll go over this a little bit more in encryption, but whenever they'll say, hey, okay, you paid us in Bitcoin, we'll go ahead and give you the files back. What they do is they just apply the key that's needed in order to uncrypt it or decrypt it, and then you're able to get your files back. Now, as a measure point moving forward as a security professional, we should never pay for ransomware. We should always fight ransomware by having backups of our files somewhere, somehow. And I would never pay for any type of files to be unencrypted. Your best bet will just be probably wiping that machine and then carrying on after that, and just wiping the machine and then rebuilding the machine from the backups that you already had. So if you're a professional that actually goes into the field and you realize that the backup plans that they have in place are not adequate, then they may be having a bigger risk of ransomware than what they are bargaining for, because if someone says, hey, we locked you out for 14 Bitcoin, that's around $35,000-$40,000, are you willing to pay that and then hope that you cleaned everything off in order to continue business? Or do you just want to just say, hey, all right, well, you can have those files locked up, that's fine. We can go ahead and continue business by just wiping this computer clean and then reissuing out a computer from the backups. So what are some indicators that you may have malware on your PC or Mac? I think the most obvious thing is if your antivirus actually gives you a notification. A lot of times these things are built off of signature-based databases. So if there's a known signature of a virus out there, your AV should be able to pick that up and alert you and clean or quarantine that file immediately. You can also pay attention to if there are any kind of file changes that's going on without your awareness. So it's kind of late at that point, but if you see any kind of file changes within the registry or temp files, then it's a good indication that you might want to run a scan on it, and you might want to unplug it from a network or disconnect from a network and then run your antivirus scan on it and then try to clean whatever's there. If all else fails and you still feel as if something's on the PC, then I will say a full wipe of the PC is necessary, and then restore from backups. So key points to review on lesson 4, I would definitely go over social engineering, making sure that we understand that our weakest point of our security posture are our users. Again, it is much more easier for me to take you out to lunch versus me breaking into your firewall. The second thing we talked about was phishing and the different types of phishing, spear phishing, welling, vishing. We also talked about spam and having those unsolicited emails come in. We finished up with malware and talking about different types of computer viruses that may happen, rootkits that can live onto the root of the PC, and making sure how important it is to making sure everything is up to date as far as AV is concerned, and making sure that we understand the indicators of viruses. Okay, lesson 5, let's go into basic cryptography concepts. We're not going to dive greatly into encryption because encryption is by itself is confusing. So we're going to go over the basics and how CompTIA wants you to know different concepts for the Security Plus exam. When you start talking about cryptography, the first thing you want to know is that encryption is taking readable plain text and turning it into something that's unreadable, and that's going to be your ciphertext. A lot of times when you hear security professionals give scenarios about encryption, they're using characters named Bob and Alice, and Mallory will be a malicious hacker or malware that's sitting in between them, disturbing the conversation. So in the scenario with Bob and Alice, Bob or Alice wants to communicate and they want to share secure information in some type of way, and they understand that Mallory could be lurking and could be listening on the network. So what they want to do is to take the sensitive information, encrypt it into a way that is unreadable by Mallory, and pass it on to the other, and then have them unencrypted or decrypt into a readable text again. So as we go along, just be aware of those characters, and that's the concept of how we actually want to go back and forth and take those readable text and make it unreadable and then readable again. Now we'll also go over hashing algorithms and how it relates to integrity, and that how we can take a hash of some type of plain text and make it kind of like a fingerprint. Is only unique to that actual plain text, and we'll go over that in further detail. Now, the one thing that you need to understand is that there's two types of encryption. There's symmetric and then there's asymmetric, and we will go over that in greater detail. But symmetric, we're using one key, and it's the same key, right? So it's the same on both sides. When Alice, she encrypts it, she's using one key, and then when Bob decrypts it, he's using the same key. And then we have asymmetric keys, asymmetric cryptography. So that's when Alice uses a unique key and Bob uses a unique key as well. So it's asymmetric. It's two keys involved. Okay, but we'll go over that in further detail. So let's talk about hashing algorithms. Hashing is a good way of showing integrity of a software or whatever message that you want to actually take a hash of. It's actually putting a message or a document against a algorithm and then taking a message digest, a fixed string, and saying that that's unanimous to the original document. And we have many different ways that we can create hashes, but one thing I want you to remember when taking the Security Plus exam is that is 9 times out of 10 going to be used for integrity reasons. So if that message digest that results from your hash comes out to be different than anything that it originally started off as, then the integrity of that document has been compromised. But hashing is not an encryption, right? Hashing uses the word algorithm because that's what the document or whatever you're putting into that hash or you want to take a hash of is applied by. But hashing is not a two-factor form like encryption is. Encryption takes something that is normal and then it takes it, encrypts it into an unreadable text, and then it has that form to have the ability to be decrypted. And hashing is not that. Hashing is more of a one-way process where this is what it is, and you need to actually undo that in order to see the original result. So just keep that in mind. We also want to make sure that we keep the algorithms that we use for hashing as well as for encryption secret. We don't want those things to get out. We don't want those things to fall in the wrong hands. So always keeping the algorithm safe when it comes to hashing, and then keeping your key safe whenever it comes to encryption is always an important thing. So symmetric encryption is the first type of encryption we want to talk about. This is where we use the same keys to encrypt a message as well as our recipient using that same key to decrypt the message. So in the example that you see on the screen, Alice has an email that she wants to send to Bob, and she will use a key to encrypt the message, and Bob will use the same key to decrypt the message. Now the thing about that is that how do we get the key over to Bob? Do we use a in-band way of doing it where we'll just use, stay on the same network and send the key over the same network? Let's say an example of that would be sending an email that's separate of the message, the encrypted message, and it will contain the key. Or we will use a out of band method where we'll call on the phone and give them the key over the phone. We could have it mailed in a physical mail to Bob, some method like that of being out of band. So remember for the test that symmetric means the same, and in order to decrypt or unencrypt a message, we need that same key. Now, some examples of symmetric keys or symmetric algorithms being used will be streaming ciphers, where this is going to encrypt one bit at a time. You're going to also see it being used with an initialized vector, and we'll get a little bit more into initialized vectors or IVs a little bit later. You also see it in block ciphers, and this is kind of where we are encrypting blocks at a time, big chunks of blocks at a time, and you'll see examples of this in AES, Advanced Encryption Standards. Is no longer a more secure, it's not a secure way of encrypting, but that's where you can see that example of. And then you'll also see things like the key length being a key factor when it comes to symmetric keys. Always remember that the longer the key, the better the more security that goes along with that key. So remember, the key strength is a big part when it comes to encrypting in these algorithms. Now, the opposite of symmetric encryption, we have asymmetric encryption. So this is where we get into key pairs. Um, the problem that we had with symmetric keys is that we had to actually distribute that key out. So the most popular form of public key encryption will be the RSA algorithm. RSA stands for Rivers, Shamir, and Edelman. These are the three guys who created this cryptography algorithm. So just be mindful of that. Understand that when it comes to public keys, this is the best way to actually perform encryption across the network. We're not going over that concept of sharing keys in order to encrypt messages and then send them abroad. So when it comes to public key encryption, the only problem is key making sure that everyone has two keys. So keeping a management of those keys can be an issue, and we'll go over that a little bit different later. So digital signatures. One thing I want you guys to really think about when it comes to digital signatures is the application that we normally use in order to have digital signatures go on, and that's DocuSign is the one that I come across a lot. So let's say if you're buying a house or you're doing some kind of paperwork for a school, and they send you some documentation that they need you to sign that you would normally sign in person, but we want to sign it over the network, over the internet. So they send it to you in an email, and they want to verify that you signed this piece of paper and then send it back, which is electronically signed, right? So the way we do that is by using an application called DocuSign, and it uses cryptography along with hashing in order to say, hey, this signature came from Jane Doe, and there's no way to say that it came from any other person. Okay, so it creates that integrity piece that we need in order to say, hey, there's no doubt in my mind, there's no non-repudiation part of it, that this could be signed by anyone else. And that's what digital signatures bring to the table. So whenever you guys see digital signatures, think about it as a way of translating your handwritten signature into a digital signature that authorizes documentations. Digital certificates is a way that a website can perform a public key exchange with your device or any other device by having the certificate verified by a CA, which is a certificate authority, and then having it pasted onto their website. So whenever you go to a website and it has the HTTPS on there, and then you click on that and you see the certificate for it, you can see who they registered that certificate with, and then how long the certificate is valid for, and you can have a good idea that, hey, this website is legit, and I can go about doing regular business with this website. So with a certificate authority, I want you to think of it kind of like a DMV for driver license. So when you go to the DMV, they are a third party that gives you the right to have a license or some type of ID. And now you carry that ID around and you give it to authorities or whoever wants to see that ID to verify that you are who you say you are. And the same thing goes with a certificate authority. I want to say that I'm mitchelltech.com. And so when I go to my certificate authority and I say, hey, I'm starting up my own website for mitchelltech.org, I want you to give me some type of validation. And they will hand me or send me a digital certificate and showing that I am the website who I claim to be. And so now when you go to my website and you look at my certificates, you can trust that I have the public keys. I have a public key that I shared with you, and it has the integrity factor that I am who I say I am. Now, as a security professional, you want to teach people to be weary of certificates that have expired or websites who don't have certificates. Because now, how can we really validate who they say they are? So we want to make sure that we keep these things in mind whenever navigating the different types of websites. If you see kind of like that HTTPS crossed out, or sometimes some browsers will actually say, "Hey, this site is not trusted. Do you want to continue?" Just be wearful about it and know that it may not be who you want to communicate with. So be wearful of the type of information that you're putting in on that website. And we want to have that type of secrecy whenever we're going to different websites, and have that type of privacy and integrity whenever we're sharing different types of information on websites. So having that cryptography factor in your certificates says that, hey, it's not so easy to replicate who I am as far as the website is concerned. And then you have that non-repudiation factor put in there. And remember, non-repudiation says that I cannot deny that it came from who it came from. So whenever I can say this is who I am on the internet and I have that validation, then it's more comforting when I'm a bank account or I'm a bank website and you're trying to get into your bank account and you have that integrity factor checked off, that you know that, hey, I'm gonna transfer $1,000 and I have full confidence that it's going to go to the account that I want it to, or I can take it from the account that I see. So, and I don't have to worry about other people um, looking at that information while I'm communicating to this website. We stated before how hashing can support integrity. Well, we always want to keep in mind that cryptography supports confidentiality. This is where we want to make sure that others are not being able to see things that or data that they should not see. So this is, in turn, the reason why you have file encryptions, making sure that we're using an encrypted cryptography, sending traffic over the network. So just remember that if you see anything or hear anyone saying that we need to support confidentiality, we want to make sure that we keep the things hidden from unnecessary views. Then we are probably looking at some form of cryptography. Now, a lot of times when we see attacks on different websites or attacks against cryptography, is probably going to be some type of man in the middle of attack, kind of sitting on your network, sniffing that traffic. And remember, whenever I'm saying sitting on your network or sniffing the traffic, I'm probably using a tool such as Wireshark or some type of network analyzer to see what traffic is going from point A to point B, and I'm taking that and seeing if I can decipher it into plain text in some type of way. But that's why we want to have cryptography to actually cover that thing, that type of traffic up, making sure that it's not readable, it's not necessarily in plain text, and so that's why it's so important to make sure that we have cryptography when it comes to network traffic going back and forth. They could also use a downgrade attack. This is where we're taking advantage of old obsolete devices and seeing if, or taking a vulnerability on a device that's already out there, seeing if we can downgrade the software to a known vulnerable software piece, and then taking advantage of it from that standpoint. So just keep those things in mind. 9 times out of 10 in the real world, you're going to probably see these man in the middle attacks, and that's just someone sitting on your network just looking at the traffic going back and forth. So just be careful of your surroundings, as well as when you're going to like coffee shops such as Starbucks or some type of internet cafe, and you're sitting down, or let's say in a hotel, and you're connecting to that Wi-Fi. Just think about who else could be actually there, just taking in that traffic. So just keep those things in mind before you actually start sharing confidential documents across the network. One of the main factors that helps cryptography be more difficult to break is the factors of key stretching and salting. Making the key bigger or longer will create more of a hassle for the attacker to actually brute force in, or when it comes to them trying to actually outsmart the cryptography, it takes a longer time to actually figure this type of process out. So key stretching is always good, right? And then salting is also adding that random value to whatever algorithm that you have. So it's nice to have the algorithm, but when we can put some type of randomness to it, then it also gives a extra factor that the attacker may not be accounting for. So just keep those two things in mind, that we want to make the key stronger by stretching, and we want to make it more random by adding a salt. We also want to talk about steganography, and steganography is being able to hide data within a plain sight. A lot of times you will see the example of hiding a document within a image file or a video file, and that's you're sending the video file or the image out of, let's say, your network. So you're sending that image via email outside of the network. But if we're in a if we're working together as hackers or as someone malicious within the network, then you will know that I probably embedded an important Excel document within that image. And so that's what we call steganography, hiding something that's in plain sight. So lesson six, implementing a public key infrastructure. Having a symmetric key infrastructure or having symmetric keys is when two parties are using the same key. But when we want to use a asymmetric format, we want to make sure that everyone has a different key or two sets of keys, and we're able to give out our public key to the public and decrypt anything with our private key. So let's look at how we can take that concept of having a asymmetric format and then putting it into how we use it in everyday life. So let's go over symmetric keys for a second. So in symmetric keys, when we're doing symmetric cryptography, I encrypt with a certain key, and then I send you the message. In order for you to see the message, you need to decrypt with that same key that I had. And the problem is that how do I get you that key secretly, or how can I say, it's not necessarily a great idea to pick up the phone and say, hey, all right, you got the message. Okay, to decrypt it, you need this passcode right here. Put in this passcode and it decrypts the message. It's more efficient, and it's more efficient to use two sets of keys, which is public key infrastructure. But when you're talking about asymmetric keys, just think about how many things that we want to encrypt, and then how many keys we need to actually decrypt those things, and then send them outer band or in band. And when I mean outer band, I'm meaning more like something that's not necessarily on the network. So I'm mailing you. I'm going to use the postal service to mail you the key, or I'm going to tell it to you over the telephone. But in band, I'm going to, walk it to your office or use the network to send it to you in a instant message. So that's in band, out of band. All right. So public key and using a public key infrastructure, we're going to use two sets of keys. So me, Lee Mitchell, I will have two keys. I will have a public key and I will have a private key. And then you, Jane Doe, will have a public key and a private key. And so whenever I want to send you something, I will use my public key to decrypt it, or I use my private key to decrypt it, and then you use my public key to decrypt it. And then the vice versa for you. When you want to send me something, you would encrypt it with your private key. I'm sorry. And then you will send it to me, and then I will use your public key to decrypt it. So the concept is this. The public key is public for anyone to see. It doesn't matter if they see your public key, but your private key is only for you and only for your eyes only. If someone gets your private key, we have a problem. So you can decrypt and encrypt with your private key, and you can decrypt with someone else's public key. That makes sense? I know I'm saying it over and over again, but just the concept of what I'm saying in this slide is this. You have a public key and a private key, and you're going to give out your public key. So whenever someone wants to talk to you privately, encryptedly, they're going to use your public key to decrypt it, to encrypt it, and then you'll use your private key to decrypt it. Okay. So in that essence, we use we take that format and then we apply it to websites when it's saying when we start talking about digital certificates or PK just the PKI's infrastructure. And just to kind of go into the infrastructure name, when we're talking about PKI, it's a system of keys and how we actually have that structured out, because everyone having a pair key system, it sounds great, but when you think about how many keys everyone needs, it can stack up fairly quick and can get out of management hands even quicker. So we want to make sure that we put in a infrastructure, some type of system to where we can manage the keys, and we can scale. We can be able to have it at a scalable point. So if we want to add in new websites, bring in new personnel, everyone can still communicate securely, and we are not overwhelming whoever's owning the keys, the public key infrastructure system, by having them, develop new keys for everyone. Now, certificate authorities or CAs, when I talked about it in the last slides, is that whenever you're creating a website or you want to get your website registered, you want to check in with the CA in order to say, hey, I want to validate who I say I am on the internet. And they're going to give you a certificate saying that, oh, okay, MitchellTech.org is exactly who they say they are because they have this certificate of and it validates who they say they are. And you will see your public key within that certificate. Now, whoever comes to your website is able to communicate securely with you because they have your public key. And so now if you wanted to encrypt any type of information, that's possible because we have checked in with the certificate authority. And I said it in the last slide that I want you to think of it kind of like a DMV, someone who validates someone else. So you will go to the DMV to get your validation of, hey, I'm allowed to drive a car, and I can also sub that license out as a form of ID. And everyone else, let's say if you want to get in the club that night, someone will look at that and say, okay, you are who they say you are because I trust the DMV, right? And so that's what we do when we go to these different websites, is that you see the green HTTPS with the little lock on it, and you say, hey, I trust the fact that I just see that. You didn't even really check to see if the authority was a valid one, but we trust that. And then we will say, hey, okay, I'm willing to type in my username and password here at facebook.com, and I have no worries that it's not being hacked or sniffed upon by any kind of unwanted entity. And as you see here on this slide, this is a pretty much a certificate that you get from your CA once you open it up. You can actually, no matter if you're on Windows or Mac, you can find your certificates that's probably somewhere on your PC, and you always kind of refer back to them just for the validity or the validation of whatever that website may be. So we want to just go in and, if we want to see who issued this certificate, we could see who issued the certificate, as well as what type of encryption did they use. And in this case, we see SHA-256 was used in order to encrypt the website, as well as we can look further. I think in the general tab, we could probably see how long is the certificate is actually validated for. And just like, you would go to the DMV and you would fill out information that's about you and maybe your vehicle that you're driving, you would do the same things with these CAs. You would just fill out information of the type of website that you have, what services do you actually provide, and you would they will come up with a encryption for your site, and then they will email you um, your certificate. And now, now you could say, once you put that on your website, you can say, hey, I am who I say I am, and you can trust me as a validated website here. So if you want to buy a t-shirt from my website, feel free. Know that you can put in that debit card or that credit card number and feel safe by the steps that we have taken as a company to get certified through this certificate authority. So on this slide, you're going to see a certificate that's actually opened up from my browser, and it pretty much has the different types of attributes that comes with your certificate from your CA. So on the right hand side, you'll see kind of the different types of attributes, and then the short description of what you will see. But you don't really need to know each attribute for the exam, but just be aware that all these different things make up an identity of who you're trying to be, or what website is trying to say or validate who they are. So you'll have a serial number, a signature algorithm. You'll have that validation date. When is a certificate is going to be going to expire. Something to keep in mind, so you don't run into the issue of having expired certificates on your website. You'll also see a public key there as well, and that's where, when other machines or other servers or devices connect to your machine, that's what they're going to use to validate any type of public key infrastructure going back and forth. So that's how we're going to see. We're going to say, hey, if I want to send something to you secretly, I'm going to use your public key to encrypt that information. Now, just to dive a little bit deeper into the subject name of the attribute, you'll normally have a common name, which you go by, www.mitchelltech.org. But you can also have other friendly names that you have or associated with put onto your certificate. So let's just say if my company name is Mitchell Technologies LLC, but I shorten it up by saying Mitchell Tech. So I can still put both names into my certificate. So whenever someone types in that name and the DNS still points it back to my website, I still have the same certificate to validate those different name configurations. So just understand that you can have different types of subdomains that you want to put in there, whether it could be mitchelltech.labs, or I'm sorry, mitchelltech.org/labs, could be a subdomain for it, or you can do a host of subdomains, which is, in this case, they use a wildcard. That's that star factor. So if you look at the picture here, you'll see the DNS name equals a star factor, and then a .comptia.org. So that star represents a multitude of sub pages on that website. So it could be marketplace .comptia.org, or it could be labs.comptia.org, and that star just says, hey, whatever the vendor or that person decides to make as a sub page, we're going to accept that and use the certificate for it. So the certificate and key management, the main thing that we want to understand is that we want to avoid aspirations or having our website be unsecure at that point in time because we haven't paid attention to when our certificates needed to be renewed. So making sure that we have a good audit pace or trail of our certificates is very vital in order to keep that secure line going. There's nothing. Not saying that your company would not run, but would you want to spend money with a company that's couldn't necessarily validate the security on their site? It says, hey, whenever you see a website that has a expired certificate, it will have this big red line through, or the HTTPS is kind of grayed out, and it kind of makes you feel weary about putting in debit card numbers or credit card numbers within that website. So you're not necessarily losing customers because you can still order something, but you may lose a lot of customers off of the integrity factor, the mindset of saying, hey, I can't trust this site, so therefore I can't trust the business there. So you lose business in that aspect. So we want to make sure that we keep those things up to date and we understand when our certificates are going to go into expiration. So just to kind of give you a visual, this is how it looks whenever your certificate has expired. You're gonna get your different browsers give you these type of error codes right here, and you can continue on to the site. It's just saying on, let's say for the example of Internet Explorer, that it's not recommended. So you can see how that can drive away traffic if you are a consumer. So just making sure that we have those things under wraps when it comes to knowing when things are going to expire, very vital to business operations. So like I said, you have different types of certificate issues, such as rejection from the servers or your clients. And when I mean by clients, not necessarily the person, but the device that they're using. They're not able to uh, be able to connect securely to your website. And we want to avoid that by any stretch of the imagination. So just making sure that we keep a good um, audit trail of what do we obtain as far as certificates, because when you think about a business may have several different websites that all offer different things, and we want to be able to be secure and know that we're not just mistaking for anybody else. So having our certificates all lined up is a good business practice because it keeps us from running and presents ourselves to the world in a secure manner. So we just want to, at all costs, make sure that we stress the fact of having expired certificates taken care of before the expiration date, making sure that we have the proper names and subdomains added on to our certificates is very, I would say, a business oriented factor that we need to have in. So just keeping these things in mind when it comes to the different types of issue that we may face. Just know that for the exam, when it comes to the problems that you may come into to face, uh, just know that it's coming from a CA, and the CA validates who you are, but then the issues may come when it comes to expiring. So we talked about PKI infrastructure. That's where we have our own public key, and we're putting it out there in a structured manner to share with others who want to come and visit our sites. We talked about certificates and the importance of having them on our sites to validate who we are, and then to say to our customers, our clients, hey, you can do business with us securely. So just keep those things in mind, and let's move on with the next lesson. Okay, so let's get into implementing authentication controls. When we start talking about authentication controls, we're going to start talking about identity and access management, and that's where we're creating users and we're creating objects within our directory to interact with each other. So we'll have things that we create in Active Directory or whatever account management system that you may have, and these things are known as subjects, objects, and they have different classifications when it comes to what they can interact with and then what who can interact with them. And we'll go into it deeper when it comes to permissions on if you get to talk to certain objects or subjects within that network. So authentication factors, whenever we're setting up a new user, it's nice to have these type of security factors or controls going on with just not just saying, hey, I have a username, let me into the system. You need to have other authentication factors to prove that you are who you say you are. So the one way we go about that is having something that you know. This could be something that you actually physically have knowledge of, or password, a PIN number that you may know. On certain phones, you've seen swiping pattern. I think it was older Androids that will allow you to connect the dots to have a swiping pattern. Um, you can also have kind of like a challenge question passwords reset. So when you forget your password and you hit the I forgot password link, it will challenge you with three different word sentences or questions that you set up that only you should know the answers to. But from a hacker standpoint, if I've done my social engineering fairly well, I could probably answer those questions about you as well because I have done my research. But anyway, um, it could also be something that you have, right? Something that you have physically where it could be like tokens, fobs, where you keep on you whenever you log into a system, it would ask you to reference that token, that fob, in order to gain access. You also have something that you do or something that you are. So that will be a good example, will be any kind of fingerprint, eye scans, things of that nature. So when creating a authentication design, we want to make sure that we hit those three pillars of our CIA triad. So remember, CIA triad is confidentiality, integrity, and then availability. And we want to make sure that confidentiality is keeping the credentials secure. And then integrity means that there shouldn't be any questions when it comes to if changes was made. And then availability is just exactly what it says. Do we have can the user be able to access at any time or any given time that they're were directed to get into their credentials, or should they have they shouldn't have any kind of support issues if they need to change any type of credentials? So a lot of times you'll see businesses move to a multi-factor authentication process where not only do you have a username and password, they also want you to have a fob or some type of authentication software that allows you to match that with your username and password. You'll have let's say Microsoft Authenticator, and that will be matched up right after you put in your password. And the concept is this, is that if I'm a bad guy and I have got your username and password, that's fine. Well, it's not good, but it's fine, so to say, if I can't get to your cell phone and get that a multi authentication piece that's also linked with that username and password. So now you kind of leave me with no options of how to get into your account from the get go. So it's good to have multi factor authentication whenever possible, but also sometimes we need to sit back and think about the business needs. Is it plausible to have it for everything that we need to log in for? But it's not just always a having a token that could be a multi-factor. It could also be somewhere you are. some type of geolocation. Are you on the company's network? Are you on a particular VPN? That can also lead to a multi-factor, something that you can do. What kind of unique pattern can you perform that's only up to you? Something that you can perform or exhibit. Also, kind of going into that same exhibit, performing a unique pattern, and then also someone you may know. So this may be going into the web of trust type of thing, where if I'm associated with this individual or computer, then I'm in a trusted network. There's various attacks that's going on passwords, and we got to understand why passwords are so valuable when it comes to attacking, right? So the reason why we want to get the passwords protected, or why a hacker will want a password, is because it makes it more easier to actually accomplish the goal that they're trying to accomplish, and that's getting into your account, seeing what type of permissions you have to actually get to the data that they want to get to. So a lot of times we can have certain non-security factors going against our passwords that make it easy for them to be cracked, or actually just bypassing altogether. So we have having passwords in plain text or unencrypted, just kind of leaving it out there in the database, so for whoever to see it. We also have like shared passwords that we all kind of use as one machine to print checks, and instead of giving everyone an account, we have one shared password with a username that we all just kind of use. The most famous way of going in and breaking someone's password is just a brute force attack, using something like John the Ripper to actually go in and brute force a actual password, trying every possible way to figure out what is your password. So that's why as a security professional, we harp on having a type of criteria when it comes to long passwords, having special characters in there, because whether you know it or not, the longer a password is, or the more complex a password is, the more longer it takes for a brute force to actually happen on that password. So I thought that was a good segue into brute force and dictionary attacks. Brute force, like I said, we're taking every possible character that we have in our language, and we actually are putting it against your password hash. So a lot of times, these attackers that take the whole English dictionary and then apply it against your password. And we have computers fast enough to actually do it in a reasonable time, but that's why it's so important to put those special characters in uppercase and lowercase, and making it case sensitive, to where you know you just can't run through it within a day's time and actually come up with the password, or it at least will give enough time to show on the network that, hey, someone's actively moving traffic or causing a disruption in the traffic, to where now your security professionals can hone in and get the intruder off the network. So that's why we want robust passwords for our users. So with password crackers, what I want you guys to remember about password crackers is that it's a software that's going to perform more than likely a brute force attack against your server that's housing the passwords on it. So 9 times out of 10, your exam is going to ask you, how does it do this? And that's going to be more likely a dictionary attack or a rainbow attack, where a dictionary attack is actually going through each word in the dictionary and then trying each character, and then it changes it at a time. So remember, a brute force is just kind of trying each and every subject, character, symbol, one at a time, to see exactly what works. This is a surefire way of making sure that you will get in, right? If given enough time, a brute force attack will eventually work. But that's the beauty of having such a complex password is that given the time that the software needs to actually try each and every character, um, your password to where it's is the length capacity creates more time for that software to actually perform the brute force attack. So therefore, it could be thousands of years before, literally thousands of years, if not millions of years, for a particular password to be cracked in order to try each and every character. So just keep those things in mind when it comes to password crackers. They eventually will get to it, but eventually may come in 10 million years. All right. So just keep those things in mind when it comes to password crackers. So authentication management, making sure that we understand where our passwords live, making sure that we have proper access to those passwords that's kind of stored somewhere. A lot of times, if you log into a certain applications on your phone, it may automatically fill in that password box for you. So just making sure that you understand what caches your password, making sure that you have the proper, if you're leaving your passwords into a password vault, so to say, then we have the proper permissions to go into that vault. Do we have two-factor authentication in order to enter that vault in order to see the other passwords that we have stored? So just keep those things in mind. In some industries, you may have a smart card, and this smart card is kind of like your profile, your account profile, loaded in on this mobile card, right? Something that you could take with you wherever you go, and it loads up on that computer or wherever you may go to show your profile and the permissions you have on it. So I know in the military, this is your cat card, as they call it, and it had everything that it needed to show kind of like this basic profile of yourself, and it was protected by having a four digit pin. I'm pretty sure now, maybe concepts have changed to where maybe that pin needs to be more of a 8 digit, maybe 6 digit pin now, but it's normally locked down with that pin. Now, you would always keep your smart card on you because we would treat it kind of like a license or some type of debit or credit card. So it could act as a second multi authenticator for that user because we're planning to have it all the time. So we also got this thing where we can put our usernames and passwords on kind of like an external device and use those things to log in to apply those credentials. And we will say, hey, instead of you actually logging in every day, use this smart card, and that will have your credentials on it. And only thing you need to remember is a 4 digit, 6 digit pin, maybe 9 digits, and just type that in. And then you won't have to worry about changing your password or whatever the case may be, because if you have this lets us know that you have access to our network. And a lot of times we see this in smart cards or USB tokens. Excuse me. So with smart cards, again, it's that the chip that's on that smart card houses all of the credential information that you need in order to navigate on your company's network. The problem with that is that we as humans tend to lose things from time to time. So if we're on a business trip to Las Vegas, and we tend to lose things, and we lose our a smart card, now we have just created a denial of service attack on ourselves by losing the card, but also maybe giving potential access to someone else who finds the card, and then maybe if they can slide it into let's say the laptop to actually get permissions to whatever network that's out there. So we just want to keep those things in mind when it's best practice to actually have a two-factor authentication when it comes to giving out external devices like this or a USB token, because you want your users to remember their username and password, but also to justify even more who they are, especially in a remote world. We want them to have that extra authentication piece to say, hey, yes, I do know the username and password, but I also know that I need to pair it with this token. And so this token was also given to me by the company, and then I have those two things, and hopefully they haven't fell in the wrong hands. So this one more factor of putting kind of a defense in depth in order to build this force field up. So not only are we just relying on username and passwords, but we could rely on a smart card with a PIN number, or a smart card that only works with certain laptops, or just having a USB token going along with your username and password. Therefore, your users need to know both in order to get onto the network. I also touched on the token keys a lot, just kind of giving like that one-time passcode that you need to authenticate yourself onto that network. So these tokens could be either hardware tokens, something that you could see clipped onto a key ring, so you could always keep it on you, right? Or you can now have it as a downloaded app on your phone, or smart device. So it could be a pad or a tablet. So you can have these soft tokens on your phone and log in it with a pin, of course, and then it gives you a code that you can actually finish authenticating with. So to give a good example of that is that when you log in to whatever access site that you're trying to get into, you'll put your username in, you'll put that password in, but then it would actually go to a different window to show, hey, put in the token for that matches this hardware token, right? And it's basically talking back to a server that has the same type of numbers going back and forth, and you'll see kind of like a countdown, and you have maybe 60 seconds to put in the code, and in order to have that code put in, then now you're synchronizing with that authenticating management server in order to give you access to your account. But don't get that confused with don't get the soft token confused with open authentication. So the OAuth is more a kind of a second factor to it, where we put in our username and password, but it sends a confirmation uh, to us, and it's good for maybe, let's say, a day, or maybe 15 minutes, whatever time frame that the administrator wants us to have. But it's sending us a confirmation to say, hey, did you receive this? And if you did, then respond back to the window that we automatically sent you to, and then we will let you into your account. So this is not necessarily the same as a second a software token, where that's actually talking back to the management server at real time. This is more of a confirmation coming back to say, hey, you tried to access this account. Well, if that's the case, then go back and look into your email, look into your phone. We have sent a text, we have sent the email. Please respond back with the code that's within. So just to kind of reiterate, when it comes to open authentication, it will have kind of like a two-part factor, right? So we're gonna log in with our username and password, but then it's going to ask you to verify yourself via phone or email. And a lot of times, this is a good factor to say, hey, not only do you need to know your username and password, you probably need to know your username and password to your email in order to get that email and then verify with whatever website that you're trying to get into. The same thing goes for your phone, right? So it's good to have when it comes to validating the security efforts. Now, the problem with that is that it can be intercepted, as far as, let's say, if you don't have your phone at the time, or let's just say you left your email open, constantly logged in on another tab. So those could be factors of hey, maybe if I play around, yeah, it's asking me to do a two-factor, but maybe, just maybe, they left their email open on the other tab. So let me go check that. Now, when talking biometrics authentication, I think it's a very good technology to have to, it's everybody's fingerprint is unique to them, so you don't have to worry about ever being reduplicated. But at the same time, it comes down to the technology. If the technology can read your fingerprint or read the patterns of your eye, the retina of your eye, in order to determine if it's you. So a lot of times the technology, in order to um, grant you access or not, it comes under a fail rate or an acceptance rate. And a lot of times you don't want to make the acceptance rate so easy to where anybody can look at the, let's say, your phone, and then they're able to get in via the face recognition. But yet you don't want to make it so tough to where um, if you look at it with just shades on, then it's not letting you in. So you have to find that balance of an acceptance rate as well as a reject rate. I'm aware that face recognition and eye scanning is controversial to users, and you may get a lot of users that don't want to participate in that type of technology. And this is where, if you still want to implement a type of biometrics, you're probably going to go with a fingerprint scanner. But while it's easy to implement within your organization, it is vulnerable to spoof someone's fingerprint. So just be aware of those type of things. But overall, you'll get um, more users to be able to buy in versus more secure ways of doing it, such as a facial recognition. Now, going into that facial recognition, as you can see, just looking at the slide here, it could be kind of intimidating to people. Um, and they kind of, I think movies probably didn't help easing the enrollment of facial recognition within the world. So, but it's a good way of having a security technology for authentication. This is where you can scan the iris of your eye, um, or the blood patterns in your retina of the eye to see what's unique to you. And again, it's a little intrusive, but a lot more secure than your average fingerprint scanner. We touched on behavioral technologies just a tad bit with the things that you are. But you can also go into something that you do, voice recognition, the way you say, whether it's Siri or Google, however you call their names, it's on a voice recognition type of technology. Signature recognition, actual handwriting, or maybe a typing speed. How long does it? Are you a type of typer that you hit the backspace a lot, or do you hit the space bar within so many seconds of words? So these are things that you do uniquely to your personality. So the key points to remember is that we have multiple ways of getting onto the network. It's not necessarily a traditional way of just using a username and password. We have smart cards. We have different devices that can take other factors into account in order to verify whoever needs access to our network. Could be biometrics. So just keep those things in mind. Keeping know the disadvantages and the advantages of having each device in your network, and just know how they're implemented across the network to give your users